With Language3, you will develop the skills you need to actually speak the language.
Pasado imperfecto, the imperfect tense. And we have finally arrived to the third way to address past in Spanish. We have the simple past or preterite, we have the present perfect, and we have the imperfect. Fortunately, there are only two sets of endings for the imperfect tense. As always, you have to take into consideration the original ending of verb ar, or ir. You have to drop that ending, and then you have to use, or you have to plug the right ending. In this case, aba for ar verbs, aba, or ia for ir verbs. When I say aba and ia, I actually mean aba plus a letter that makes that word match the subject in the sentence. Let me clarify that. You have yo trabajaba, I worked or I used to work. Tú trabajabas, él trabajaba. Nosotros trabajábamos. Ustedes trabajaban. Ellos trabajaban. So, there is always aba in the word, but there might be something else. For example, an S for tú. Tú trabajabas. A mos for nosotros trabajábamos. Or an for ellos trabajaban. For ir verbs, we do the same but replacing the ending with ia. Yo vivía, tú vivías, él vivía, nosotros vivíamos, ustedes vivían, ellos vivían. You will notice that most of the times we translate this as used to. So, for example, yo vivía, I used to live. Yo trabajaba, I used to work. Okay, let's see some examples. You have yo hablaba, I spoke, or I used to speak. Yo estudiaba, I studied or I used to study. Yo trabajaba, I worked or I used to work. Él perdía, él corría. Nosotros comíamos, ustedes bebían, tú cocinabas, etc. Okay? Building the imperfect tense is pretty simple. And the good news is that there are only 3 exceptions. Okay? You have only 3 irregular verbs. They are ser, ir, and ver. So all you have to do is to learn the endings aba and ia. Aba for ar ending verbs and ia for ir ending verbs, and only 3 additional irregular verbs. They are ser, for example, yo era, tú eras, él era, nosotros éramos, ustedes eran, ellos eran. So, cuando yo era niño, yo jugaba tenis. I used to play tennis when I was a kid. The second verb is ir. Yo iba, tú ibas, él iba, nosotros íbamos, ustedes iban, ellos iban. For example, yo iba todos los días al gimnasio. I used to go to the gym every day. And the third irregular verb is ver, to see. Yo veía, tú veías, él veía, nosotros veíamos, ustedes veían, ellos veían. But the question is, when do we use the imperfect tense? Because we have already 2 ways to address past, the preterite and the present perfect. Well, we have some different cases. Case number 1 is to talk about actions that are repeated in the past, okay? For example, nosotros siempre íbamos a la montaña. And as I told you, it is generally translated as used to. So for example, we used to go to the mountain. Nosotros siempre íbamos. Case number 2 will be the imperfect will be used to set the stage. Okay, we use it for actions to set the stage. In this case, we usually have another action that makes an interruption, and the action that makes the interruption is in simple past. Okay, these sentences are a little bit more complex. For example, yo cocinaba in imperfect tense y mi hermana llamó in simple past, and it makes an interruption. So, yo cocinaba y mi hermana llamó. I was cooking when my sister called. Yo dormía cuando el timbre sonó. I was sleeping, continuously happening, when the bell rang, and makes an interruption. Okay? The third case is to describe a scene or a person in the past. We usually use the imperfect tense to do so. For example, la niña tenía 4 años. La niña tenía 4 años. Mi profesor era alto y tenía el pelo ondulado. Okay? Here we are describing people in the past. Then, el campo era bello, or hacía calor esa noche. Here we are describing a scene or an environment in the past, and we use the imperfect tense. Case number 4 is to describe mental or emotional states or desires in the past. For example, a mental state would be, or emotional state would be, me sentía feliz con mi trabajo nuevo. Yo me sentía feliz con mi trabajo nuevo. Don't worry, for the word me is part of what is called the reflexive verbs, and we're going to learn that in the future. Okay? But right now, we're using sentía from the verb sentir, to feel, to describe an emotional state in the past. And to describe a desire in the past, you also use the imperfect tense. For example, yo quería mudarme a otro país. Yo quería mudarme a otro país. Here, I would like you to remember that when we studied the preterite, the simple past, there were some words or expressions that triggered the use of the simple past. For example, ayer, hace una semana, a week ago. Hace un año, a year ago. Okay? We had a set of expressions that triggered the use of simple past. Well, we will have a set of expressions that will trigger the use of the imperfect tense. All of them are related to repetition in the past. A menudo, a veces, cada día, cada semana, cada mes, cada año, con frecuencia, de vez en cuando, en aquella época, frecuentemente, generalmente, muchas veces, mucho, nunca, por un rato, siempre, tantas veces, todas las semanas, todos los días, todo el tiempo, varias veces. Most of them are related to frequency. Okay? So, remember the case 1 is we use the imperfect when we want to talk about actions that happened repeatedly in the past. Well, we can use these words to trigger the use of the imperfect. For example, yo a veces comía pescado. Yo iba a Madrid cada mes. Yo estudiaba frecuentemente. Yo caminaba en la plaza todos los días. Yo veía televisión a veces. But at this point, you may have one question. Why do we have 3 tenses in Spanish to talk about the past? The simple past, the present perfect, and the imperfect tense. The question or the answer is rather simple. We use the simple past to talk about things that happened once in the past. Okay? And we know the moment it happened. We use the present perfect when we don't know or it is not important the moment when the action happened or when the action started in the past and continues to happen in the present. And we use the imperfect tense to talk about things that happen repeatedly in the past, things that we used to do. Thank you for taking our lesson, and until next time.
Do it well with Language 3.